Imagine you were sitting with us right now in a completely empty private screening room.
Oh, yeah. Set the scene.
Right. So the lights are totally down. The screen in front of you is massive. I mean, it is taking up your entire field of vision.
Just absolute darkness all around you.
Exactly. And suddenly an image flickers on, and it's not just a picture, It has this immense, crushing physical weight to it.
Oh, you feel it in your bones.
Yeah, the sound literally rattles your teeth. You can almost smell the salt water and like the dust of ancient ruins. You aren't just watching a movie. You are entirely submerged in a reality that feels heavier than your own.
It really is an overwhelming sensory experience. You get that low-end frequency in your chest before your brain even registers what you're actually looking at on the screen.
And that visceral, heavy feeling, that is exactly what we are plunging into today.
We're going deep.
We really are. We are exploring the mind of one of modern cinema's most ambitious, uncompromising directors, Christopher Nolan.
Oh, total visionary.
And we are doing it by looking at his absolute behemoth of a project. His reimagined epic, The Odyssey.
Such a massive undertaking.
Unbelievable scale. And to do this, we have this massive stack of detailed cinematic analysis and behind-the-scenes production notes sitting right here on the table between us.
A lot of material to get through today.
So much. And we're going to use this material to dissect Nolan's overarching obsessions, which are, the manipulation of time, the depths of human emotion, and his endless fascination with deeply flawed heroes.
Well, looking at the landscape of modern cinema right now, it's very bifurcated. I mean, it's split.
How so?
You generally have directors who lean entirely into computer-generated weightless spectacle. Or, on the other hand, you have directors who focus exclusively on quiet, slow, indie dramas.
Right. It's usually one or the other.
Exactly. But Nolan, he insists on merging the two. He builds these impossibly massive blockbusters, but he anchors them entirely around complex, often devastating human psychology.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly understand what makes his storytelling tick, you have to look at his philosophy on production.
You really do.
The core of his operating principle just seems to be that if a shot is easy to accomplish, there is no inherent value in it.
Right. There's absolutely no value in the path of least resistance for him.
And that philosophy brings us to the actual literal weight of his sets.
The physical reality of it all.
Yeah, we've seen this before, right? Like in Tenet, when he decided the absolute best way to film a Boeing 747 crashing into a building was to simply, buy a retired 747 and crash it.
Which is still insane to think about.
Totally insane. But the production of The Odyssey pushes that obsession to a whole new extreme. According to these notes, this is the first feature film in the entire history of cinema shot entirely on IMAX cameras.
Completely unprecedented.
Yeah.
And the logistics of that are just staggering.
No, I can't even imagine.
I mean, IMAX cameras are not just high-quality digital sensors. They run massive 70-millimeter film stock through a motor that literally sounds like a lawnmower running inside a metal trash can.
A lawnmower in a trash can, wow.
Yeah, they are incredibly loud, which makes capturing dialogue an absolute nightmare on set. And on top of that, they weigh as much as a large dog.
So they are heavy, loud, and he's dragging them everywhere.
They're notoriously cumbersome. And he didn't just take those bulky cameras into a comfortable, temperature-controlled studio.
No, of course not.
He dragged them into the wilderness. Take the Trojan Horse, for example.
Oh, this part of the notes blew my mind.
Right. In almost any other modern production, that's going to be a digital rendering.
Or like a lightweight fiberglass prop, painted to look like wood.
Exactly. Maybe mounted on some hidden wheels to make it easy to push. But in this production, the crew built a historically scaled, solid wooden horse that weighed a staggering 3,628 kilograms.
Wait, that is over 8,000 pounds of actual timber.
Real wood.
So when you watch the actors hauling this massive structure on screen, you are watching real physical strain.
You're seeing genuine exhaustion.
Yeah, their muscles are tearing, they are sweating profusely, and they are visibly, dangerously exhausted. They aren't pretending to struggle for the camera.
They're literally dragging a multi-ton object through the dirt.
And that kind of authentic whole-body exhaustion, it simply cannot be faked by actors standing on a green screen stage, holding a tennis ball on a stick.
No, you can't fake that. That physical commitment, it dictates the entire performance. And the locations follow the exact same logic.
Yeah, instead of building a safe, controlled set for the Palace of Ithaca on some Hollywood backlot, they actually secured permission to film on top of the actual ancient ruins in Ithaca, Greece.
Which is unheard of.
Unheard of. And the notes mention it was so seamless that when the actors first arrived on location, they literally thought the production design team had built the ruins from scratch.
They thought it was a set.
Yeah, and he even secured the Nestor Cave in Greece for the Cyclops scene.
Oh, this is incredible.
Right. This is a real ancient cave system. It is the mythological birthplace of Zeus. No director in history had ever been granted permission to bring a film crew inside it before.
And the maritime scenes operate the exact same way. They didn't shoot on a soundstage water tank with, like, industrial fans blowing on the cast.
Which would have been so much easier.
So much easier. But the actors spent months out on the actual open ocean. They had to go through this rigorous training to learn how to operate a historically accurate, full-scale sailing ship.
That's dedication.
And because they were entirely at the mercy of the elements, the film captures these moments of unscripted magic.
Like the dolphin.
Yes. There's that scene where Odysseus is standing on the bow staring out at the horizon, and a wild dolphin coincidentally breaches the surface of the water right in front of him.
It's just perfect. You know, reading through this, I realize CGI to me is sort of like a microwave dinner.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Right. Like, it looks like food, it's hot, it's fast, and it technically gets the job done. But Nolan's practical effects are like a slow-cooked, from-scratch meal that took 12 hours to prepare.
You could taste the effort.
Exactly. You, as the audience sitting in the theater, might not be able to identify the exact ingredients. You might not know that the prop weighed 8,000 pounds or that the cave was a real ancient site. But your brain can taste the difference in reality. You subconsciously know it's real.
I totally agree. That physical grit of the production environment, it doesn't just stay in the background, it bleeds directly into the characters.
Oh, absolutely.
You see that exhaustion on screen, which forces us to look at Odysseus not as this shiny mythological hero, but as a deeply flawed, exhausted human being. The sets aren't polished, and the heroes certainly aren't either.
That's a great point. Usually when we think of Odysseus, we think of this classic, idealized hero from antiquity.
The quintessential hero.
Yeah, but Nolan strips all of that away. He treats Odysseus much more like, say, his version of Batman, or like Cooper from Interstellar, or even Oppenheimer.
Right, men dealing with obsession.
Exactly. He's a man driven by incredibly deep, often destructive human impulses.
The focus shifts entirely from divine destiny to pure human psychology. I mean, let's look at the Trojan Horse again, but from a thematic perspective this time.
Okay, let's do it.
In traditional tellings, it's celebrated as a stroke of genius, right? A brilliant trick that finally ends a grueling 10-year siege.
The ultimate victory move.
But in this framing, it's examined as a deeply dishonorable breach of the ancient rules of war.
Because before that moment, Bronze Age warfare was largely based on honor and one-on-one combat.
Yes. In ancient Greek culture, there was a profound respect for the duel. If you had a grievance, you fought champion to champion.
Like Achilles and Hector.
Precisely. When Achilles wanted vengeance against Hector, he challenged him directly in broad daylight.
Even though Achilles desecrated Hector's body afterward.
By dragging it behind his chariot, which was unimaginably brutal.
Yeah, super dark.
But it still stemmed from a face-to-face challenge. The combatants looked each other in the eye. Odysseus, on the other hand, uses deception.
He hides in the shadows.
He hides inside a wooden statue. He breaks the unwritten social contract of civilized warfare. And in doing so, he essentially opens Pandora's box. He introduces guerrilla tactics and stealth, effectively turning the world into a savage free-for-all. Because the foundational rules of honor have been completely shattered.
And he is incredibly arrogant about his intellect, too.
Oh, intensely arrogant.
Our notes point out that pivotal moment in the Nestor Cave. After Odysseus and his men blind the Cyclops and manage to escape to their ships, Odysseus can't just sail away quietly in the night.
He just has to have the last word.
His ego demands recognition. He turns back and shouts, "I am Odysseus, son of Laertes," to a creature that is literally the son of Poseidon, the god of the sea.
Such a dangerous flex. I want you, the listener, to just think about your favorite superheroes for a second. Most of them have some sort of supernatural gift, right?
They can fly, or they have impenetrable skin.
Exactly. But Batman, much like Odysseus, has no inherent superpowers. He only has his intellect.
That's his weapon.
But in a Nolan story, that intellect is a massive double-edged sword. It's the tool he uses to survive, But it is also the source of a catastrophic ego. That massive intellect often causes just as much trauma as it cures.
And because Odysseus is portrayed as this hyper-realistic, flawed tactician, Nolan essentially strips away all the magical fairy tale elements of the original text.
He makes it raw.
He really does. He forces the audience to view this epic story through a very harsh, brutal, historical lens.
He grounds the mythological gods in stark reality. And this becomes very clear when we look at the thematic backbone of the film, which relies on what the ancient Greeks call the law of Zeus.
The hospitality rule.
Right, this was a strict cultural mandate regarding hospitality. You were socially required to treat any wandering stranger with the utmost respect, offering them your food, your fire, and a place to sleep.
No questions asked.
The reasoning was that any random beggar appearing at your door could actually be a god testing you in disguise.
It was basically the ultimate social safety net, but entirely enforced by the terror of divine retribution.
Treating a stranger like a king was how civilization maintained order. But the tragic irony of this film is that as Odysseus travels trying to get back to his kingdom, he realizes no one is following this law anymore.
The world has completely descended into chaos.
The Cyclops doesn't offer them food. He literally eats the guests.
Yeah, worst host ever.
And the giants on the coast, they destroy the Greek ships without a second thought. The world has lost its moral compass, entirely as a downstream consequence of the deception Odysseus himself introduced at Troy.
Which leads to one of the most brilliant historical twists in the entire narrative.
Oh, this part is fantastic.
It's how the film reinterprets the mystery of the Sea People.
Right.
Around 1200 BC, there was a period known as the Bronze Age collapse. Within a span of maybe 50 years, complex, thriving empires across the Mediterranean like the Mycenaeans, the Hittites, they simply vanished.
It's wiped off the map.
Cities burned to the ground. And historians point to these mysterious, unidentified marauders recorded in Egyptian texts simply as the Sea People.
And it remains a genuine historical mystery today, how such dominant civilizations were wiped out so rapidly.
But Nolan implies in this incredibly dark twist that Odysseus and his starving crew are the Sea People.
It changes everything.
It really does. They aren't noble explorers having magical adventures. They are desperate, heavily armed veterans who have resorted to utter savagery, pillaging coastal towns and destroying innocent lives just to survive their journey home. It completely inverts the concept of the heroic journey.
It forces us to ask, are these characters truly civilized men clinging to their principles, or are they just barbarians fighting over scraps of food?
Right.
And nowhere is this clearer than in the reimagining of Circe, the witch who famously turns men into pigs.
Oh, the Circe segment in these notes is so fascinating.
Nolan relies heavily on Madeline Miller's modern psychological translation of the myth for this part. In this version, Circe isn't a two-dimensional cackling villain. She is a deeply traumatized woman.
She has a reason for what she does.
She has isolated herself on this island because of the absolute horror she has experienced at the hands of men. So when these strange, desperate, armed soldiers land on her shores, she uses her herbs and hallucinogens to turn them into pigs as an act of pure self-defense.
She essentially says, I am just turning you into what you already are, savage animals driven by your base appetites.
It completely reframes her from a monster into a survivor.
And when Odysseus confronts her, he realizes that to force her to change his men back, he has to find her weak point.
He looks for leverage.
Yeah, he notices a pet crow she keeps in a cage, and he threatens to strangle it. And the production notes reveal that the crow is actually her sister, whom Circe transformed to protect her from the brutality of the outside world.
It's heartbreaking.
When Odysseus threatens to snap this innocent creature's neck just to get his way, it strips away any remaining illusion of his heroism.
It forces the audience to confront who the real monster in the room is.
Okay, but I'm looking at these notes about Circe and the Sea People, and while the psychology is undeniably fascinating, it completely dismantles the original text.
It's a huge departure.
Right. At what point does a reimagining just become a totally different movie wearing the Odyssey's clothes? Doesn't this run the risk of alienating anyone who came to see the classic myth?
That is the core risk of adaptation, for sure. But Nolan's philosophy is that the purpose of cinema, especially this massive scale, is not to simply validate what the audience already has in their heads.
Give them what they expect, you mean?
Right. If you want the exact story you already know, the book has been available for 3,000 years.
Fair point.
Cinema is about presenting a challenging vision. It's about taking those ancient themes of war, trauma, and guilt and making them resonate with the anxieties of a modern audience. It's not supposed to be a comfortable nostalgia trip. It's supposed to make you look at the human condition from a completely new angle.
And having these grounded, traumatized characters is only half the battle. To actually make the audience feel the weight of their past sins, Nolan has to manipulate the structure of the story itself.
He manipulates time.
Yes, time. Time is his absolute trademark as a storyteller.
He is obsessed with it.
We've seen this obsession since Memento, a film he made on a tiny $8 million budget. He told a story about a man with no short-term memory by running two timelines simultaneously, one moving forward in chronological order in black and white, and one moving backward in color until they violently collide in the middle.
It forced the audience to experience the protagonist's confusion firsthand.
And he applies a similar puzzle box structure to The Odyssey.
He really does.
He doesn't start at the beginning of the journey and plot along chronologically. The film actually begins at the end of the timeline, in Ithaca, with Odysseus' son, Telemachus, desperately trying to figure out what happened to his missing father.
And the story is then heavily fragmented, told through the highly unreliable perspectives of different characters.
Like we have Menelaus recounting his terrifying version of the Trojan War from inside the claustrophobic belly of the wooden horse.
And the narrative utilizes this technique of recurrence.
I love when he does this.
Showing us a brief scene early on, and then bringing it back hours later when we have new context that totally shatters our original understanding.
We saw this executed perfectly in Interstellar.
When Cooper leaves his daughter.
Yes. It's a sad scene initially, but when we revisit it at the end of the film from inside that multidimensional tesseract, where he can physically see past moments unfolding in real time and realizes he was the ghost haunting his own child, the emotional context completely changes.
He treats the narrative structure like a Rubik's Cube. Every twist of the timeline reveals a new truth.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting in The Odyssey. Before Odysseus leaves his kingdom to go to war, his wife Penelope gives him a small, beautiful statue of the goddess Athena for protection.
The little totem.
Right. And in the beginning of the film, this statue is represented visually to the audience as the actress Zendaya. We just accept it as a glowing, ethereal representation of wisdom guiding him through the dark. Every time he holds it, we see her face.
It acts as a comforting, divine image.
But at the very end of the film, when Odysseus finally confesses the unvarnished truth of what really happened the night Troy fell, the puzzle pieces snap together. We see the real memory unspooled.
This part is so dark.
It wasn't a statue breaking. During the fiery sack of the city, Odysseus' men brutally beheaded a young, innocent civilian girl in Troy, a girl who looked exactly like Zendaya.
The visual trickery is astounding.
Every time he looked at that statue of Athena during his 20-year journey, he wasn't seeing divine guidance. He was hallucinating the face of the innocent child his men murdered.
The revelation completely recontextualizes his entire journey, from a noble quest into a desperate, guilt-ridden flight from his own war crimes.
It's heavy.
But how does a director keep an audience engaged through such a heavy, dark, and complex psychological puzzle without exhausting them?
Well, according to the breakdown here, it comes down to relentless pacing and deeply immersive sound design.
Nolan's pacing is uniquely aggressive.
It never stops.
Right, brilliant directors like Paul Thomas Anderson or Quentin Tarantino, they will happily let the camera linger in a room for 20 minutes, building tension through slow, methodical dialogue and pregnant pauses.
Nolan doesn't allow the narrative to linger.
The momentum is always pushing you forward. The terrifying escape from the Cyclops cave, or the brutal final showdown with the suitors occupying his home, these massive, complex set pieces each take less than 25 minutes of screen time. The editing just refuses to let you catch your breath.
And the sound design is the engine driving that momentum. The score for this film was composed by Ludwig Göransson, and he took a radically authentic approach.
He went all in.
He completely abandoned modern instrumentation. He researched ancient Greek carvings and mythological texts, and commissioned exact working replicas of ancient jars, bone flutes, and lyres.
He scored the entire film using sounds and tunings that literally hadn't been heard on Earth for thousands of years.
Which is wild.
And these ancient instruments fundamentally differ from modern ones. They aren't tuned to our standard, comfortable 12-tone scale. They sound inherently dissonant and primal.
Almost unsettling.
Gernson uses this to create rhythmic auditory illusions, much like the Shepherd tones Hans Zimmer used in Dunkirk, where the pitch seems to endlessly rise without ever actually climaxing.
It just keeps building.
The music builds, stops, and starts again, reflecting the stuttering nature of time. This is most prominent in the haunting siren scene.
Oh, where the crew has to plug their ears with heavy beeswax to avoid being driven insane by the song, while Odysseus demands to be tied to the mast of the ship so he can hear it without jumping to his death.
The sound design physically traps you on that wooden deck with them. You hear the creaking of the ropes, the muffled silence of the deafened crew, and the piercing, dissonant wail of the ancient instruments cutting through the fog.
I do have to offer a bit of critical pushback on his overall style, though.
Let's hear it.
Nolan is a masterclass filmmaker, obviously, but he isn't flawless. Sometimes, because the editing is moving so incredibly fast and because he is so laser-focused on building these intricate, overlapping puzzle boxes of time and plot, the actual emotional heartbeat of the movie can get completely lost in the machinery.
Yes, the phenomena often referred to as the Nolan chill.
Exactly. Look at Tenet. The temporal puzzle was undeniably brilliant, but the emotional stakes felt completely hollow. The main villain literally just wants to end the entire universe because he has a terminal illness and is going to die anyway.
It is a bit thin.
It's such a fundamentally weak, petty motivation that it makes it incredibly hard to emotionally invest in the protagonist's struggle to save the world. The mechanics of the puzzle are so loud, you can't hear the humanity.
I see what you're saying. When the emotional motivation is weak, a Nolan film can feel like you're just sitting in a lecture hall watching a very expensive math equation solve itself.
Right.
It's technically impressive, but it's cold. When he gets it right, though, when the mechanics of the puzzle serve a profound emotional truth, it creates something transcendent.
And that is why The Odyssey works so well.
Exactly. The puzzle isn't about saving the world from a convoluted sci-fi weapon. It's about a broken, traumatized soldier desperately trying to get back to a home he no longer recognizes, only to realize he is the one who broke it.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today. From the sheer physical madness of actors dragging 8,000 pounds of wood across real ancient ruins, to a director who fractures the very fabric of time just to force a mythological hero to confront his darkest, most hidden truths.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in.
Nolan doesn't just make movies to entertain a passive crowd. He fundamentally respects your intelligence as a viewer. He crafts these heavy, dense experiences that demand you watch them a second or third time just to decode what was happening right in front of your face from the opening frame.
When you step back and look at the macro view, his films are ultimately a profound reminder of our place in the universe. They highlight how incredibly small we are in the grand, sweeping scheme of time and history.
But at the same time,
Simultaneously, they show us how massive, how utterly destructive, and how deeply consequential our individual micro-choices can be.
Nolan constantly shows us that as humans, our memories are notoriously unreliable. They are edited, smoothed over, and rewritten by our own brains to ensure that we remain the righteous protagonist of our own story, just like Odysseus tried to do with the burning of Troy.
We all do it to some extent.
So I want you to ask yourself, if you were forced to sit in that dark screening room and watch your own life's timeline play backward, stripped of all your carefully constructed justifications, viewed from a completely outside perspective, would you still be the hero you think you are? Or would you discover that somewhere along the way, you were the villain all along?
That is a chilling thought to end on.
Thanks for joining us in the screening room today for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.